And how many people really take the time to go for a walk in the park and get outside and get some sunshine and do all of that? We don't do it. All of this is going to reflect very much on sustained weight loss. And again, talking to people about exercise, one of the things that you gotta love what you're doing. If you're forcing yourself to go to the gym and that's not your deal, then you're not going to enjoy it. You're not going to be in the headspace for it. There's already something that's been set up from a negative perspective. So it's not going to be fun for you. So you're not going to bust your butt to get out of bed and go and do these things. So for many people, I'm just find something. And you know what? Even if it's just walking, I just need you to move. And for the people who really find that their time is difficult, I'll say, well, you watch TV every day, and they're like, yeah, I try to manage the news or whatever. I say, then fine, march in place in front of the TV. But just move. But make sure you like what you're doing. And again, healthy fats, we know what they all are. We know that we should be having, certain kinds of nuts and avocado and, fatty fish. We should be eating healthy, but we're not going to overdo it. This is not the kind of ketogenic diet that we're talking about here. We're not talking about high-level, unhealthy fats. We're talking about just the healthy ones. We've really come around to what we know about the ingestion of fats. I think that unfortunately, the hardcore keto story is still out there. We're seeing that, on social media. We're seeing that in the TV, and we've really got to get out of that place because we've really come a long way. The data is very different now in terms of the type of fat that we should ingest and when we should ingest it, and the benefits that we should get. And so, again, coming back to consuming healthy fats, not too much. Again, we're going to put ourselves in that state where we're using our body fat as fuel. Do you want me to read that? If you decide to go on a diet, this was a really good idea. Someone said to put all your trigger foods in a bag when you're ready to start your new amazing, story with regard to your diet. Put your trigger foods in a bag and go give them to somebody, the homeless person. Now, the downside of that is that we're going to give them all the garbage. But the good side is that it's going to be out of your refrigerator. And that's about it. I thank you for your time, and if you have any questions later, let me know. Thank you. You're welcome.
So, Dr. Cates, over the past, since we're running behind, I'm not going to do questions, but just want to let you know, Dr. Cate, over the past 25 years, has been looking at so many diets, and what she has done is really understand the process of what's going to work so that people can sustain over time. That's the key issue, is that you don't harm yourself and you can sustain the success over time because you really understand food. Our objective with all these presentations is to give you a understanding of some of the issues that are out there, and then tomorrow give you some of the solutions. Stress, as an example, you can see is such a major problem for everybody, but there are some simple solutions that we're going to talk about and introduce you to programs that can help address that. Our next speaker is somebody that is very unique. I think that everybody knows somebody close to them who has had heart problems, who's probably had a bypass or stents. And it's really sad because heart disease is such a preventable condition. And even when you have a hardening of your arteries and you have conditions that the standard of care is just going to basically give you these drugs that many times have severe adverse effects, there are some really simple solutions that can make a huge difference. And Dr. Howard Elkin is, I think, one of the country's foremost preventative cardiologists. So please welcome Dr. Elkin. So this moves it forward, this moves it back, that's the pointer. You don't want to touch these two.
Oh, there's a pointer right here.
The pointer is the red one. Yeah, and here's the...
Well, good morning, everybody. I wasn't quite sure what was going to be going on here today, so I'm so thrilled to see this audience and people speaking about preventative and changing a paradigm, a potential paradigm in medicine, because it's badly needed. The current paradigm is broken. So I feel like I'm in the right audience, I'm not speaking to a bunch of strangers. I'd like to start off with a case study, because I think case studies are always kind of relevant. So I have this patient. He's a middle-aged man, very good health, no history of hypertension or any other cardiac-related issues. So one night he wakes up early morning, about 2 a.m., what was like heartburn right in the middle right here. Never had heartburn before. It lasted about 2 minutes, and then it went away. And then about 2 hours later, it came back with vengeance. It was really strange. But it went away. Then he awakened at 7:30 and went to work that morning, felt really good. Showered, shaved, went to work, did his thing. And then about 10:30 that morning, he broke out in this sweat, cold sweat, which was really unusual. So fortunately, he worked in a medical building, so he was able to get an EKG, which was read as being totally normal. So he only worked a half a day that particular day. It was a Thursday. So he decided, well, I might as well go work out now because I'm feeling fine. So he goes to work out, and his training went fine. And at the end, he decided to hang around and do those ab benches. So he's working on his abs, and all of a sudden, his arms feel so heavy. They feel like they're about 50 pounds each. He's getting really worried at this time. So he calls his friend Barry. He says, Barry, my arms feel like they're 50 pounds each. And Barry says, Howard, your arms are 50 pounds each. That was me he was talking to. He said, I think you should call your doctor. So I called my doctor. And he said, I think you need to get a Cedars-Sinai right away. I said, you sure? He said, I think it would look really stupid for a cardiologist to drop dead of a heart attack without being seen. So that's a true story. And I was anything but what you see here, the medical advocate, because I was totally clueless with my symptoms. I was like many other males in this country that totally ignored them, didn't think I could have a heart problem. I didn't have any of the usual risk factors, nor did I have a family history. But this can happen to anybody. So, and I could have died. And when I didn't, I decided to use this as a wake-up call. And over a period of months to years, I became known as the medical advocate, because what I advocate, it's not just for me, it's for all of you and your patients, your colleagues, your clients, that they take the high road when it comes to their health. It's like pulling in the reins. It's like taking control of your health. It really starts with the patient itself, and it's been said beautifully today by other people. So that's kind of what I represent. Okay, so I'm a preventative-minded cardiologist, integrative cardiologist, and this is my definition, not Webster, and it's going above and beyond. It's going outside the box. It's looking for any possible way to get to the root of the problem. And I'll tell you why it's important. Heart disease, as you know, is a disease of excess. So excess fat in our body, excess sugar in our diet, excess the wrong kind of fat, excess blood pressure, excess stress, excess blood sugar, and lack of one thing, physical exercise. But here's the challenge. Despite the improvements and the decrease in mortality over the year, heart disease still remains the leading cause of death in this country. In fact, about 33% of all deaths in this country is still related to heart disease. So we have a long ways to go. So even though you've heard about these stents and medications and different types of therapy, we still have a lot of heart disease. The financial cost is enormous, and 50% of people that have a heart attack have normal LDL cholesterol. I was one of those. I had totally normal profile. So you can't just go on that. Now, here's why it's such a challenge. 50% of people that have heart disease, their first symptom is sudden death. That's how we really miss the boat. If we just wait for someone to have a heart attack, they're dead. So we have to go outside of that. Most patients don't have a classic lipid panel. I certainly was one of those. Even if you look at people on a statin, more people have an event on the statin than they don't. So it's a family disease. So even though we've made some major strides, there's a lot we have to do. So this was my lipid panel about a year and a half before I had my event. And you can see it was pretty good. My total cholesterol was 146, HDL 52, LDL. Everything was pretty acceptable. And even there was called an LP(a), which is a terrible risk factor down here, which was normal. So you would think, wow, this is a pretty good panel. How could this person possibly have a heart attack? Well, so then we have to look into the risk factors. I call these the major players. The major players are those that there's no question about it. There's a definite correlation between these risk factors and heart attacks and heart disease. Hypertension's always been number one. Now, about 70 million people in this country have hypertension. Most of them don't either know it or they're inadequately treated. And here's another challenge. The guidelines have changed. And so what was considered normal or borderline in the past is no longer that way. For example, now, if you have a blood pressure, 120/70 is the perfect blood pressure. But if you have 131/81, you are now considered hypertensive, which is very important. So it's changed because of the SPRINT study that came out in 2015. And as a result of that study, in 2017, the American Heart Association and the American College of Cardiology revised their guidelines. At first I said, is this a white ring plot to make people take more medicines? But actually, it's beyond that. There's no question that lower is better when it comes to blood pressure. And in my 33 years of treating patients with heart disease, I will tell you, the ones that have a blood pressure of 120/70 or below are the ones that do best, with less heart attacks and less drugs. There's no question. So we really need to look at hypertension. So what do we have? We got a lot of drugs, right? But there were so many drugs with a lot of side effects. And I was involved with a study. One of the genius of earthing and grounding is here, Clint Ober, Clint, why don't you stand up for a second, if you would? I had no idea this gentleman was going to be here today.